Morning friends, we nearly had another disaster of a weekend in sales, but thankfully Sunday really just popped off and we nearly had $1,000 worth of sales just in that one day. But Friday after our 2 p.m. cutoff was super quiet. Saturday we only had one sale, and then Sunday we managed to get another 3 sales, which then 3 into 1,000 is just insanity. But I'll take you through what sold. Our one and only sale on Saturday. This one game was a nice $26 plus postage. You can imagine the fact that we didn't have any sales Friday afternoon and then this was the only sale that came through on Saturday. We were worried that the weekend was going to be quite slow. One thing we've also noticed is, in general, once we've had like a really good week, or like last month was our best month ever, sales seem to like fall off for the first like week or so. I don't know why, but it's just a trend that I've sort of noticed happening. But still, when this one came through, I was like, oh, thank God, there are still some sales. So not too shabby on this one. It is from our larger gaming buy. So a lot of these Sega games are slowly going up onto our store. So if you're interested in that, make sure you check it out. I realized I forgot the first sale on Sunday. So actually we had 4 sales that made it up to be the nearly $1,000 day. First up, we had an artwork that is part of the massive consignment deal. Same with the Wedgwood. That went on to sell for $200 on Facebook Marketplace, which is very exciting because that one's been sitting around for a while, so I was glad to move that on. And then next up, it's not a weekend unless we sell some Wedgwood, and this one was a whopper. So it was, I believe, this plate. I'll see if I can take it out because it is actually really cool. Oh, da 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 da. Time for the reveal. Like, look at that coloring on that plate. It is insane. So cool. This lovely plate went on to sell to a repeat buyer who does love to buy Wedgwood from us, which is absolutely fantastic, for $500 plus postage. So within those 2 sales alone, that is already $700 worth of sales for the lovely family that we do consignment for. Next up, we have a Wii console bundle and games. This bad boy went on to sell for $165 plus postage. We got this from a friend, so it was free money. And the final sale of the weekend is this PS2 game here, also from our large gaming bulk buy. It went on to sell for only $25 free postage because, first off, we took an offer on it. It had only been live for like 5 days. I had it up for 30, but I was trying to increase sales considering we hadn't had that much this weekend. But also, free postage, it shouldn't have happened because I've changed our free postage single disc policy to now only paid, thanks to all of your feedback in the comments around, like, you could get scammed if people say that an item wasn't delivered. Like, so I changed that policy, but for some reason it didn't change it on all the items, and I realized after this one sold that it actually is free postage. I mean, it's only a $25 game, so worst case, it'll be fine. But that was the last sale. I mean, short and sweet with this one. So I think I'll just hopefully try and take some more offers this week to increase some of the sales. I think there must be some things that I need to do to really just shake up our store a little bit. I am also this week going to start doing stock take, which means I'm literally going to go through each single bucket of every SKU and just make sure that everything in there is currently listed, but also look and see how long it's been listed for, because I might just do some nice price drops, some title changes, just to try and make it a bit more appealing and hopefully move some of the stock. But last time when we did a massive stock take of our whole store, we ended up getting quite a few sales. So fingers crossed we get that again. I think it's just because eBay recognizes that you're really active on your listings, you're manipulating things, you're changing prices, so it rewards you with sales. Plus, it's really good just in time for the end of the financial year, that if there are some items that we're absolutely just scrapping, then we can cut them as losses when it comes to our tax. But a lot of work for me this week. So speaking of tax, I thought I would quickly touch on, because we had a lovely question from Starchy645, who has recently started reselling and left a comment on one of our videos just going, Would love to see a video on how you have navigated income tax, super, keeping receipts, and even logging kilometers in your car when you go sourcing/posting. Do you have an accountant? Then they go on to say how they've successfully come off Centrelink and are starting to go into this a bit more full time. So basically what we've done is, this is the first, like the 2024 financial year is the first full financial year since we've registered this business. Then we've obviously also got the 2025 financial year, which is coming to an end now. So this is the first time we've ever had to do like proper tax for this business, because prior to that it was all just a hobby. And so I've actually just been through a lot of learnings. There was so much that I didn't even realize was a thing that you needed to consider, but thankfully, because I'd had a few things set up prior to, it wasn't that difficult to get everything together that the accountant has needed. What I do in terms of salary, so I mentioned in a previous video that I am paying myself now weekly, and then out of that, technically that is including super, and I've only just started now in the 2025 financial year setting aside some money for super. Prior to I wasn't paying myself enough to have the income to then be able to also contribute to my super, which like obviously is never ideal, but at the start it was sort of a requirement. If like when I went full time, I was only paying myself $250 a week, and if I had to contribute any amount of that into super, I would literally have had like $100 a week to live off. No, I know that's a bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. I didn't really want to take it away. I also felt like that it wasn't worth putting $35 a week into super, or whatever that was going to look like. But now I've set it up so that after I pay myself, I put aside X amount of money into the super. I think it's about 9% of what my current income is. And then I've set it up so that the bank takes out my super contribution monthly. And I think it's around like $600 or $700 a month. And that's only been as of this last quarter, when I started being able to pay myself $1,000 per week. I mean, obviously it's up to you guys if you want to start contributing earlier. I just accepted that I had already earned some super when I was working full time, so I wasn't starting from complete scratch. But also in terms of the income that I was earning from this job, I needed that money more than I probably will need the money in the future. And then hopefully that'll be able to grow and increase, and I'll be able to then contribute the right amount further as we keep growing. I think the Australian standard now is going to, it's either like 12 or 13% of your income should be going towards super. And I mean, hopefully I can start earning enough that that still makes sense in terms of all my other living costs and all of that. But as it is right now, I'm only doing about 9% of my current income. For tax time, this has been definitely an interesting process. I think an eye-opener for sure in terms of learning like what you actually need, what's required. Thankfully, as I've mentioned, like I've had my spreadsheets before, so with all of that, like I've kept track of everything. So I'll tell you what I'm doing now, and once I send it across to the account, I'll tell you if what I was doing was right, because at the end of the day, I'm not 100% sure that I've got everything covered, but basically I just keep track of all of my costs via sale. So basically my expenses don't count as an expense until the item has sold. But then also what I've learned is originally I had just been tracking everything as if I went to a garage sale and I spent $70 but I bought 5 items, I wasn't attributing the cost per item. I just went, each item was a part of that 70 and how much I'm making back on that. For tax purposes, that it's not great. So what I've had to do now is just attribute that one cost to one of the line items once that's sold, and then the rest of them will be 0 cost and then pure profit. Now for tax and moving forward, I will always break out the cost per item based on what it was purchased for, rather than just the bulk amount. That way I will be able to get expenses back for each item rather than just having to do one massive lump sum and then the rest be free profit. So, I mean, I think both ways are fine. This is just the way that, like, when I was talking to my mum, who's also an accountant, sort of advised is the best way to do it. Because then also, when you look at in terms of loss, if for whatever reason that item doesn't sell, or like when I do our stock take and I decide to remove stuff from the store, you can contribute that money towards a loss amount because you weren't able to sell that item, rather than going, oh, I spent $70 on the entire bundle. You might have only sold one item for say 50, so you're not even making that money back, but you just have now attributed that as a 70 total, whereas we can sort of split out and go, oh, I'm still making profit on that one item, but then these other items are lost because I can't sell them. So that's how I'm currently going to do it. I will let you know how that goes, if it works, if it doesn't work. Everything I do at the moment is greatly a learning experience. I don't have the answers to everything, and as I always say, the way that I do it isn't necessarily going to be the right way or the best way for you to do it. So always take my advice with a bit of grain of salt. I mean, I wouldn't, yeah, I'm not claiming that this is any legal or verified advice in terms of how you should be doing your tax. I've also had to work on getting out of the mindset of, like, because obviously when you're a business, you pay tax on any profit. So for me, I go, well, you obviously want to make as much money as possible, right? Like that's the goal of a business. You want to be making money, but then in terms of tax, you almost want to be getting closer to breaking even. So then you're paying less tax on your business. So I think it's also just being aware of that and going, I should be paying myself as much as I deserve, rather than worrying about how good the money's sort of looking in the bank for the business to spend on new items. Because at the end of the day, we're paying tax on that money. My salary doesn't count towards, obviously I pay personal tax on my salary, but the business wouldn't be paying tax on that. As well, we also have set this up as a partnership, which does make it a bit different to a business. So that's also something to take into consideration when we're talking about how we're doing our finances, because again, a partnership works a bit differently because it's a joint, like your partnership money counts as a salary rather than a business tax, if that makes sense. I mean, I am very much still learning about all of this, so learn with me, guys. It's very interesting. It's a whole world that I never really had to delve into because, as I said, my mum's an accountant, so she always did the family tax when it came to tax time, and I just let her do it. Whereas now I'm very much learning about, like, oh, the business, like this is what you have to do as a business. So yeah, it's very interesting. In terms of tracking kilometers and stuff, this is something I tried to start doing and then sort of stopped doing. I know that there are apps that you can use to track all of that. That would make it a lot easier. So I'm definitely looking at the possibility of investing in one of those, just to make it easier. Again, this is a good way to have less money sitting in the business, because if I can claim kilometers via tax, that would also help, because it's all, as I said, an income for myself. So there are some really good apps that can help track it. And then I think the Australian standard is, I think it's quite high. I think it's like 80 cents to the kilometer. So basically you can just use that, track how many kilometers you go. I feel like we should definitely be tracking them when it comes to garage sales. Trips to the post office, I'm less fussed about, because for us, the post office is literally like around the corner from where we are. But whether or not that's the right thing to do, like, I'm not entirely sure. But that's just currently my mindset on it. and something that we will look at implementing hopefully soon enough if I can be bothered. That's the other thing. I'm so bad with this sort of stuff. But I'm definitely trying to get better for this financial year so then it's a lot less of a hassle when tax rolls around for this one. So I've also rejigged my spreadsheet because I've learned that having everything in one giant spreadsheet is not necessarily the best way to do it. It's great in terms of me being able to track our sales, but in terms of tax, it's a little bit more annoying to see when things are sold. So at the moment, I'm keeping that giant spreadsheet as just a personal, that's nice to know, because then I can still see overall, like the lifetime of the business, how much money we're making. But I've also now got a new spreadsheet that each time we have a sale, I'm copying and pasting that line across to this new one, so then I can see for the fin year of 2024 to 2025, how much money have we made, how much have we lost, how much have we spent on our items and all of that. So yeah, it's been an interesting one. I'm definitely learning. We've just got a new accountant, so that's another big thing for me. I wouldn't do this on your own, just because there are so many things that you need to be aware of and the risk of getting it wrong unless you are personally familiar with all of it. I would definitely recommend getting the assistance of an accountant just to make your life easier. Like, why would you want to make it harder if you can avoid it? But that's what we're doing at the moment. Was there anything else that I needed to touch on? Keeping receipts. We currently have one of those spiky things and just stab them on there for any physical receipts. Something else that I learnt, which would actually probably be really handy to tell you guys, is because obviously at garage sales you're not getting receipts. It's really hard to keep track of cash transactions, and originally we were sort of talking about it with the accountant, going, oh, am I going to have to bring a receipt book to garage sales and get them to sign it and say like, oh yes, this transaction happened for this amount of money. But upon further research, for the ATO to be satisfied, you are allowed to do cash transactions of under $75 per item, as long as you've just written it down. So essentially what my spreadsheet is, where you've got the item, the date that it was purchased for, how much it was purchased for, and like where you got it from. I just label it garage sales. Then that is fine. That is legal. That is all good by the ATO standards. Anything that's above $75, then I think it gets a bit more complicated. However, it also depends on how you attribute like the split. So this is, remind you, per item, not necessarily per purchase. So for us, let's say like the large gaming bundle buy, where we spent $5.7 thousand in one purchase in cash, when you break it down cost per item, it actually only turns out to be like, I think it was like $11 or $13 per item. So in that instance, because we've itemized every single thing, each time one of those items sells, I can just put the 13 cost against it. And therefore, by the tax ATO standards, that is also fine because each item is not above $75. Similarly, I think just be smart about it. Like, know what the limits are, know if you do have to write things down. On occasion with Facebook Marketplace, just taking some screenshots of the transaction and like confirmation that you've collected it is also enough. So that's what I've been doing when sometimes it is a larger purchase for a singular item. Again, in cash, I just take a screenshot and then just save it on my desktop for when tax time rolls around. And basically I just also write on the listing like, thanks for the transaction, like confirmed collected, and they usually reply saying like, oh yeah, no worries, because then that also proves that like you picked it up, which I think is also probably helpful to have for tax. The other one that we also recently had was an auction sale, and they also give you receipts, so that is fine for us there. I've just saved the invoice, and then I'll share that across with the accountant when I need to. But I guess my biggest advice is just make sure you're on top of documenting everything that you pick up when you pick it up. A simple Excel is fine, but just making sure that you keep track of that sort of stuff. And then just talk to an accountant, because they'll have advice, they'll have recommendations on the best way to do it, what's the easiest way for you, because also you don't want to be spending so much time doing all of this. Now that I have it all set up and it's really easy for me to use, I can sort of just go through the process of doing like line by line. It's very easy. But if you were starting from scratch again, or like you've already started your business but you haven't kept track of everything and having to backtrack that, maybe just ask the accountant on the best way to do that, because that would be a lot more work. But I mean, you might have to anyways. So I hope that sort of answered those questions, but let me know how you guys are doing it as well, because maybe the spreadsheet's not the best way. I know that there are accounting platforms like MYOB or Xero that you can use that would more easily help track some of those expenses, but those platforms do cost money if you want to be able to send invoices and that sort of stuff. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any recommendations. I know tax time is coming and I'm really excited to do the stock take, because I feel like, as I just said, when we were just picking all the items, that it really helps give the store new life. Even if you've only got 100, 200 items, I would recommend doing it. It's a good practice as well, because naturally if you listed something 100, 200 days ago, that price may no longer be competitive, even though you did it at the time at the right price. So I would always recommend, I mean, I only do it once every year. I feel like that's enough just because we've got so much inventory. But if you can do it more frequently, definitely start up that practice, because it will inevitably help your store, but also help declutter, because things that we bought a year ago, they might not have been good buys. And I've definitely learned a lot since then. So I think always making sure that you stay on top of your stock, but then also in terms of tax, that helps, because then you can write off items that are a loss and then sort of just put that away. Because as I said, for me, the money that's spent on the item isn't counted as a profit or a loss until I've sold the item. So if I'm binning something or having to like redonate because it was a bad buy, I can now write that off as a loss, because that item is no longer sitting with me in our business. But yes, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts around this, or if there's any improvements that you can suggest. And also just let me know if you guys had any great sales this weekend, because Saturday was a big flop. Sunday popped off. I mean, who knows at the moment? Fingers crossed this month is going to be bigger and better. We're definitely increasing on sales every month. And my original estimate of 55,000 in sales this year, like, we're going to smash that. That's absolutely insane. I thought I was setting what was a realistic goal based on previous expectations and based on the first few months of me starting to do this full time. Whereas now looking at the results, I mean, we're probably closer to like 90,000 in sales this year, maybe even 100,000 if we keep going up on this trajectory. So, I mean, that would be an absolute feat and a half if this year is that amount. I also might reset our goals once the financial year happens, because I feel like that's probably a better way to track it rather than Jan to December. Everything just seems to work on that financial year. But thanks for watching, guys. I hope this was somewhat helpful. Let me know if there's any other topics that you guys want to know on how we do stuff, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.